It's hard not to think, though. I mean, you can't blame a founder for diversifying their portfolio, but liquidating your stake is almost an indictment of the company's prospects, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily jump to that conclusion. I mean, this is a fairly interesting but very specific situation where I think it was very awkward to have the founder with a substantial ownership stake who had supposedly relinquished all management oversight. Did he have to get rid of every single share? I don't know, but I think for the health of the company, he really needed to remove himself both operationally and from an ownership position. And I think that's because, and I met Kalanick, I thought he was very smart, very charming. He didn't come across as the fire-breathing dragon that others knew him to be. But there has to be a significant shift here from the kind of hard-charging, aggressive, upset the apple cart, thumb in your face, we don't care about the local regulations, to a global charm offensive to win over regulators. This has gone from a scrappy upstart to a very major established company that threatens, existing interests. And Travis is just not the right person for that. So I think he did need to sell.
I do, really. I mean, I don't know.
Well, if he didn't, he's like, what's the CEO going to do when he gets the phone call from a huge shareholder? I mean, of course.
Well, he had a lot. He did. He had a lot of influence. He had initially a number of board seats that were sort of given to him. Remember when they had the big fight with their venture investors as well, Kalanick, and then Khosrowshahi came in. We forget the drama that took place there. But, there are a number of people, I think, Jim, who still view him, and obviously I've spent time with him as well, that think there's something missing. That founder energy and passion and now willingness to sort of fight for every last inch is missing to some extent.
Well, I'm sure it is missing. But isn't that the story of all of these, high-flying, innovative, upset the apple cart, upstarts? I mean, they have to, at some point, make the transition from being, the scrappy newcomer on the block, challenging the status quo, to becoming part of the status quo. Now, when exactly is that going to happen? It's never going to be perfectly timed or very easy. I mean, there have been many examples of founders have trouble making that transition.
Right, but we've still got it's interesting when you think about founders. Obviously, Zuckerberg comes to mind as the founder who is still on top, still every day, making those key decisions for arguably one of the most important companies in the world.
It's actually a really good point, Jim. I mean, can you imagine Zuckerberg not even becoming chairman emeritus, like leaving the board completely and selling all but 10% of what he owned?
I agree. It's kind of hard to imagine at this point. But that said...
Well, Bezos, could you imagine that? No, you couldn't.
No.
I can go through a bunch.
Well,
Mr. Musk, who you've covered, could you imagine that?
No, but here's the difference. They have succeeded. I mean, they may be the exception rather than the rule. They have, they're at various transitional points in the histories of these companies, but they have made successfully the transition to, upstart into establishment companies. Although, let's acknowledge, they have been running into some problems as they have become the biggest kid on the block. I mean, there are a host of regulatory issues that they're confronting now that they didn't before, privacy issues, their influence in the world, massive problems that come with their success.
Right.
And I think the jury is still out on how successfully they're going to navigate this new set of challenges to sort of growth.
Speaking of which, price is still here at 30.40, about a third below IPO at 45. What do you think about the prospects for ride sharing and all their ancillary businesses? You see us getting back to 45 anytime soon?
I wouldn't predict the timing of it, but I've been positive. I've been bullish on the story for both Uber and Lyft. I think these are transformative companies. I think, yes, they're meeting some headwinds here. There are very powerful established interests trying to block them, but the model is very good, and especially as you move to self-driving, self-delivery, you start solving some of these environmental problems now. I think the future is very bright. I mean, I think this really is a transformative model that could end up being very, very successful.
Well, Josh, that's going to be a key story for next year. The degree to which they get out of markets with Eats where they're not number 1 or 2, and then how the unit economics work as we get closer, what kind of advances we make toward autonomy in the years ahead.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch this story play out. Listen, Uber certainly attracted a few more bulls. I mean, one you guys know very well. I remember Jim Cramer just a few weeks ago, I think late November, thought, with the lockup period behind it, I remember Jim thought it was maybe time to take a look at Uber. In terms of Jim Stewart, my old professor at Columbia, makes, I think, a great point. I mean, he's right. Different companies at different points in their history have, need for different kind of leaders. At one point you need kind of maybe the scrappy founder, and maybe there's the feeling that now, though, you need more of the kind of professional operator. And Travis Kalanick himself, listen, he's moved on. He has new ambitions as well. He's an venture investor now in those kind of startups like CloudKitchens. But certainly an interesting headline, and one I'm sure investors will be paying close attention to today, guys.